You know, when you think of a classic country music festival, your mind probably jumps straight to a very specific, down-to-earth aesthetic, right? You picture scuffed-up cowboy boots, ice-cold drinks, and this relaxed, salt-of-the-earth vibe where everyone is just there for the twang of an acoustic guitar. But Stagecoach 2024? Well, it morphed into something entirely different. It basically evolved into this bizarre, highly visual collision of low-key country charm and completely chaotic Hollywood excess. We're going to break down exactly what happened and look at how an event meant to celebrate rustic country roots somehow turned into a surreal, dust-covered fever dream. So, what actually happens when Hollywood decides to completely hijack the desert for a weekend? To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of the strangeness this year, you have to lean into the stark contrast of it all. On one hand, you have the traditionally down-home, boots-in-the-dirt vibe of Stagecoach, and on the other, the frantic, almost desperate celebrity antics that actually unfolded. It wasn't just, a few actors throwing on cowboy hats to listen to music. It was a full-blown industry takeover that left regular attendees, and honestly, the entire internet, completely scratching their heads. If you were walking the festival grounds, the very first thing you'd probably notice was the crowds, or rather, the lack of them. This wasn't that roaring, shoulder-to-shoulder sea of devoted fans you'd normally expect at a massive music event. Instead, there was this immediate, inescapable feeling that this year's festival was significantly less about the music happening on the stages and way more about serving as an exclusive, dusty VIP playground. It felt like a place for the rich and famous to simply show up and be seen by the cameras. Case in point, Sydney Sweeney's absolutely chaotic Siren Saloon pop-up. Instead of setting up a traditional laid-back merchandise tent, she brought an entirely different, highly frantic energy to the Polo Club. Picture this. She's running around in full Western fringe, literally slingshotting large bloomers and undergarments directly into a very confused country music crowd. It was a spectacle that felt completely disconnected from the environment. Basically, it turned a country music festival into an impromptu, high-octane lingerie launch. And honestly, nothing brilliantly illustrates the bizarre tone of the weekend quite like DJ Diplo enthusiastically booming this exact announcement over the desert plains. Let's get some of these panties right here. This for the ladies. I mean, just think about how jarring and absurd that statement is to hear echoing over the massive speakers at a country music festival. It was an incredibly out-of-place stunt, and it really highlighted exactly how disjointed the entertainment had become from the actual music-loving audience just standing there in the dust. And the chaos only amplified as the weekend went on. Later, Sydney Sweeney took the microphone to attempt a live duet of the song Choosing Texas. And honestly, the performance tells you everything you need to know about the disconnect. She's holding the microphone incredibly far away from her face, awkwardly trying to navigate her way through the song, and just looking entirely out of her element vocally. It was a prime example of a celebrity trying so desperately to blend into a musical aesthetic that they just don't quite fit. Things took an even stranger turn when people started observing her interpersonal dynamics on the grounds. At one point, she climbs up onto the shoulders of music executive Braun. It put this incredibly awkward physical and power dynamic on full display for absolutely everyone to see. Parading through the crowds in such a highly visible, almost theatrical way naturally sparked massive conversation online. Everyone was asking about their relationship and why exactly they were making such a calculated spectacle of themselves right in the middle of a festival. And the struggle here was quite literally real. Braun is visibly straining under the sheer weight. His face is bright red, and he looks totally overwhelmed trying to navigate the uneven terrain. Meanwhile, sitting up top, Sydney Sweeney is frantically scanning the sparse crowd, desperately searching to see exactly who is filming her. It's a moment that feels distinctly less about enjoying the country music echoing in the background and entirely about manufacturing a viral, perfectly timed photo op. Now, despite insider reassurances that they were a committed item rather than just a brief weekend fling, the public remains incredibly confused by the pairing. We have to report the widespread backlash here neutrally, but it's important context that Braun has a highly controversial industry reputation following some deeply entrenched fallouts with major pop stars. So seeing the two of them seemingly try to rebrand as this casual, carefree country couple, yeah, that was a very tough sell for a lot of onlookers. But hey, they were far from the only ones disrupting the usual festival flow. Navigating the VIP section felt like walking straight into a glitching simulation. It was this unpredictable rotation of random and sometimes heavily controversial public figures. It wasn't a cohesive guest list of folks who love country music. It was more like a chaotic, random draw of Hollywood's most debated names, all crammed into one dusty VIP area. It was an absolute VIP fever dream. We're talking a rapid-fire collision of vastly different celebrities. You had Ashton Kutcher, Mila Kunis, Guy Fieri, Tom Hanks, Diplo, and Taylor Holder all just milling about. It's a staggering list of faces from completely different, non-overlapping corners of the entertainment world. Their collective presence in this very specific setting was just incredibly confusing. It really begs the question, what exactly drew all of these totally disparate personalities to this one specific weekend in the desert? And that question of why was particularly loud when it came to Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, who were spotted enthusiastically dancing right in the middle of the crowd. Fans immediately began questioning their sudden, highly visible reappearance. They had largely stepped back from the public eye recently, which made their carefree front-and-center partying at Stagecoach stand out as a very calculated, deliberate return to the spotlight. The public's reaction to their sudden reappearance was sharply mixed, perfectly encapsulated by one fan's absolutely blunt comment, "When did we uncancel Ashton Kutcher?" The reception online was highly critical, with observers noting the palpable awkwardness of Kutcher happily mingling in the VIP section with Scooter Braun and other men who hold highly controversial reputations in the industry. For a lot of people, it felt less like a genuine love for the music and much more like a highly calculated networking event designed to repair images, which naturally rubbed a lot of onlookers the wrong way. Actually, let's pivot for a second, because amidst all that calculated VIP networking, there was one surprisingly endearing twist. A-lister Tom Hanks, rocking a fedora and a casual button-down, was standing in an incredibly tiny, maybe 30-person crowd at one of the much smaller, intimate side stages. Why is the legendary actor there? He was enthusiastically and genuinely supporting his son, Chet Hanks, during his country music set. It was a strange, yet oddly wholesome little oasis in the middle of all the sprawling desert madness. But that wholesome, intimate father-son moment actually leads us perfectly into our next overriding theme of the weekend, bizarre family performances. Moving away from those sparsely populated side stages and back over to the massive main stage, attendees were treated to another highly unexpected family moment. Only this one didn't land quite as warmly with the festival audience. Was this meant to be a rare, triumphant family reunion? The main stage saw the Cyrus family coming together, specifically Billy Ray Cyrus, joined under the bright lights by his children Noah and Brayson. It was a massive gathering of star power, with actress Elizabeth Hurley even watching the whole thing unfold from the wings. It was clearly designed from the ground up to be this heartwarming, unforgettable set for the thousands in attendance. Following the set, Billy Ray Cyrus offered a glowing, highly PR-friendly statement to the press, saying, "This is an amazing day and I'll cherish it forever." It's a sentiment full of warmth and paternal pride, right? But when you contrast that rosy, picture-perfect quote with the harsh reality of the actual onstage performance, a very different, much more chaotic story begins to emerge. Because the reality was a set full of muffled, confusing melodies, we have to neutrally report that the live audience's reaction to Billy Ray's vocals was incredibly harsh. His singing was described by those standing right there in the crowd as completely incomprehensible. Rather than a triumphant return to form, the live performance was poorly received, with frustrated fans actively complaining they couldn't understand a single word coming through the massive festival sound system. And then, the festival took an abrupt, dramatic, and genuinely dangerous turn. The harsh reality of the actual desert environment violently interrupted all of this artificial, celebrity-filled glitz. Mother Nature decided to step in and remind absolutely everyone exactly where they were, crashing the exclusive VIP party with an intense, unavoidable display of natural force that shut the music down completely and sent everyone scrambling for safety. Suddenly, the digital screens across the sprawling grounds flashed with this urgent emergency warning. Please move quickly and calmly to the nearest exit. An intense, blinding sandstorm swept in without any warning whatsoever. Howling winds tore through the festival grounds, violently ripping through the lavish tents and the sprawling VIP setups. All those random A-listers, influencers, and regular attendees were forced to scatter in an absolute panic, fleeing for cover as a massive wall of dust completely swallowed the venue. Now, this chaotic weather event is really the crucial pivot point of our explainer, because the storm wasn't just a brief inconvenience that ruined a few carefully planned celebrity outfits. it highlighted a much deeper, far more significant issue. We're talking about the severe, long-term ecological impact of holding massive, resource-heavy festivals in highly sensitive, living ecosystems. The desert isn't just a barren sandbox waiting to be played in. It's a fragile, delicate environment that is deeply and permanently affected by this massive influx of human activity. You really have to contrast the absurd wastefulness of the event against the incredibly fragile reality of the California desert ecosystem. On one side, you have the staggering festival excesses, massive traffic emissions from thousands of vehicles, unbelievable waste generation, and pure, unfiltered indulgence. On the exact opposite side, you have the stark desert reality, a fiercely resource-scarce environment, delicate living ecosystems, and severe, lasting habitat disruption. The two are fundamentally, inherently at odds. And honestly, nothing hits the nail on the head regarding this glaring disconnect quite like the massive, makeshift temporary pools filled to the absolute brim with water right at the sprawling campgrounds. The sheer absurdity of trucking in and wasting tens of thousands of gallons of precious water just to have a makeshift splashing pool party in an arid, heavily drought-prone desert landscape is, well, it's staggering. It is a striking visual representation of pure, unadulterated environmental disregard perfectly disguised as luxury. The stark reality of the weekend can really be summed up in one powerful, overarching sentiment. Stop treating deserts like blank backdrops. It highlights the dark, inescapable irony of the entire weekend. You have incredibly wealthy VIPs and influencers treating a sensitive, struggling natural habitat like their own personal disposable playground, a convenient place to throw lingerie, fill up giant plastic pools, and leave mountains of trash behind before hopping on a private jet back to Los Angeles. Which leaves us with this final, vital question to ponder. Is a single weekend of VIP chaos, awkward celebrity sightings, and muffled performances truly worth the permanent, undeniable cost to the delicate desert ecosystem? As we watch Hollywood continue its sprawling, relentless takeover of these beautiful natural spaces, it's a profound question that we, and certainly the festival organizers, will eventually be forced to answer. Think about that the next time you see these lavish festival photos flood your feed. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.